What's up, guys? I want to give you an in-depth update on what it actually takes to break into tech sales and how to find your next job in 2025. We're about halfway through the year, and I have seen several things both go right and wrong over the course of this year, but at the same time, seeing more people than ever breaking into tech sales and or landing their next job. What I'm going to break down today is, I think, the difference that is emerging between the playbook to break into some of the biggest brands in the world. So think your Snowflakes, your Databricks, AWS, all of those things. And then also the playbook to break into fast-growing startups. Obviously, in the AI space right now, everything is crazy. You know, if you watch this channel, I'm generally a little bit skeptical of these super early stage startups. However, I am starting to see more and more exceptions and cases of people breaking into these fast-growing AI startups and having tons of success. But again, the whole point of this video is those are two completely different playbooks. And if you're trying to run both the same way, I think you're going to fail. And as we get into it, guys, I did just want to say thank you. We have grown so much now that we have large companies and small companies reaching out, trying to hire talent from our higher levels pool. So whether you are a student in the higher levels community or you're just trying to get your next tech sales job, there's a link in the description to our talent network. Over the course of the next year, the next step for higher levels is going to be connecting tech sales talent with some of the fastest growing companies in the world. So you can fill that out completely for free, by the way. It will allow us to have your information and ultimately connect you with the right companies as those opportunities become available. But I want to start with a few things that are, I think, similar to what I've preached in the past if you've watched this channel for any length of time, but I would say have gone from nice to haves to non-negotiables in 2025 and beyond. And regardless of if you're breaking into a big company or a startup, a fast-growing AI company, you have to cold call the hiring manager now. Even if they don't pick up, even you leaving a strong voicemail, just the ability to actually cold call them and try and catch them out of the blue. Yes, some managers, by the way, hate it. I've heard 10 to 20%, but usually, like, if they're hanging up on you and mad that you called about trying to be a sales rep on their team, that just makes no sense to me in the first place. But I'm seeing more and more people that are actually getting auto rejected and overcoming that by cold calling the manager. And the second thing that I would say, again, this was especially kind of a nice to have, maybe do it if you have time kind of thing. One of the biggest things I'm seeing, especially breaking into the biggest companies in the world, is I'm not going to say like a requirement for all the applicants, but I would say 50+% of people breaking into these companies now are coming from referrals. And this is because there is so much SDR talent now. It is becoming more competitive. People are privy to this career, and rightfully so, that I think if you are just applying, even if you're cold calling, even if you're messaging, do those things, and that is probably going to get you a first round interview. But I think if you can especially network your way, and at Snowflake or at Databricks or whatever it is, if you can find someone that will actually refer you in and have a line of communication with that manager, with that recruiter, whoever it is, and put your name in and also just be that point of reinforcement, that is what I'm seeing work well and what I'm seeing all of our higher level students leveraging right now in the community. But that is something, again, whereas in the past, it's like, hey, if you have time, reach out to 5 SDRs, see if you can get that referral in. And again, I'm seeing exceptions. I would say, 50-ish% are getting in without doing that. But I think the reward and the amount of time you spend versus the upside that it gives you is now justifying that I would do that in almost every case. Reach out to 3 to 5 SDRs at these target companies that you're going after and see if you can get that referral. And again, I don't have time in this video to just say like, hey, here's how you message them, because that's a whole conversation, right? Like, don't approach a stranger and say, hey, can you refer me in? It's like, yeah, sure, I'm going to put my reputation on some random stranger that I've never even talked to. But you get my point. You have to play the game. You have to do the job to get the job. And whereas I think even a year ago, I would say that the big thing last year was cold calling was really setting you above. Now, more and more people are getting privy to cold calling the hiring manager. And again, I still think it's a requirement, but especially if you can get that referral, especially if you can get someone to go to bat for you, that is really putting you above and beyond, especially when you're going to the biggest companies in the world, your Snowflakes, your AWS, your Databricks, your Mongos, etc. Those are the ways that I think you really, really stand out now if you otherwise don't have like some crazy thing on your resume, like Olympic athlete or whatever it might be. I would say one of the most interesting things this year has been the startup world. Generally, you guys know, if you've been following this channel, especially if you're breaking in, I recommend kind of going to a bigger brand to start your career, because then it's much easier to go to a smaller company. However, I will say, guys, I am starting to see more and more SDRs that, one, would succeed anywhere they go because they're putting in the work first and foremost. But second of all, that are actually going to these smaller AI startups and having a lot of success. To make a simple analogy, like large companies and small startups are going to value the same-ish like skill set of like, do you have drive? Are you ambitious? Can you do the job before you have the job? Those are prerequisites for sure. But I think a lot of people coming into this naively think the playbook is the same for both. And once you get past that first round interview, it's where I really see the biggest difference between the two. The large companies are looking for you ideally to be someone who, again, is like, yes, creative, yes, driven, but you can follow a process, you can learn quickly, you're very coachable, and you are coming into their system, not the other way around. Again, that is a drastic oversimplification. But again, it's why I do think that if you start there in your career, there can be a lot of value because you come into a proven playbook, you understand things that are working, but also it's why a lot of startups don't like to hire from mega huge companies because you have a standard playbook, you have a brand that speaks for itself. And when you go to these startups, it's like the same playbook doesn't always apply. By the way, this is one of the reasons we are starting the Higher Levels Talent Network, because in the past, again, you guys know I'm going to protect you and I'm never going to put you in a situation where I connect you with a company that is total trash. However, again, with so many AI companies on the rise, many of them reaching out to us trying to find sales talent, especially at the SDR level, that is why, again, we created that. So if you are interested, it's like a 5-minute form, totally free, and that will allow us to connect you, whether you are a higher level student or just trying to break in. But it's really after the first round interview is where you start to see a major difference. When you're talking to sales managers at MongoDB, at Snowflake, at Databricks, at some of these bigger companies, they're looking to see how coachable you are because you are coming into a proven system that you need to execute at a very high level. And yeah, you need drive. Yeah, you need maybe a little bit of curiosity so you can do things a little bit differently here or there. But at the startup level, it's the almost complete opposite. There is no structure. There is no process. There is a lot of opinions. But at the end of the day, if you can figure out how to get results, that's what wins. And I'm going to elaborate on this more. But the difference between going to a large company and a smaller company, even with my own background, if you guys are familiar with me, if I'm interviewing with a large company, I'm going to talk about some of my biggest highlights, some of my biggest accomplishments, especially around a group. I'm going to talk about all of these different things that I've done that are more material and I would say surface level, like validation I would get because it's an actual award. So I played for Team USA. I have won different awards academically. I was a Dean's List scholar. Those are the things I'm really going to drive home when I'm going to these big companies because it shows I can get really focused on the task at hand and I can execute that at a very high level. The flip side is if I'm going to a startup right now, I kind of need to be able to just show I can figure shit out. And so while all of those things I just mentioned are true, what I would talk more about in a startup is how I actually worked as an engineer for 3 years. I quit because I didn't like working at an enormous company. And over the next year, I actually self-funded my ability to play sports overseas and basically got paid and lived off of like ramen noodles while I was playing sports professionally. But I guess said another way, like if you're at a major player right now, that experience is still going to be beneficial if you do want to break into an AI company. But I know more and more people, as AI is getting more and more mature, are starting to get impatient and looking to make that move from what previously was a great logo now to a smaller AI company because they want to ride that wave. And I think to some extent, rightfully so, just don't, do your diligence, don't take a dog shit offer. But those are some of the things I would really think about. Like if you're at an Oracle or a Salesforce of the world and you want to go to an AI company, talking about how you crushed quota at Salesforce is just kind of a mute point. It falls on deaf ears. Like don't come in and say, I hit 150% of quota. Really talk about the process that you identified that was kind of what the sheeple were following, for lack of a better word, and something you identified and went against the grain and did something different that actually led to a very tangible result. So I'm happy to elaborate more and more. Again, thank you guys for the growth. I've had a ton of you reach out, by the way, whether it's in higher levels or on LinkedIn or YouTube that are talking about landing jobs. We've seen more than ever, I would argue, this year. And because of that, again, we are starting the Higher Levels Talent Network. So check that out in the description. If we don't have that, by the way, if you don't complete it, we won't have the ability to connect you with anyone. But this is really the next step for us as we become bigger and bigger. And again, it's all thanks to you guys and the support over the years. So yeah, check it out below, like and subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, if you have any questions too, fire away in the comments because I do still check these myself. Happy to help along the way. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.